This is a 1998 plastic Dark Eldar warrior, and though they were replaced by fancier versions in 2010, I think these still look pretty good. And it's kind of fun how they have their own distinct aesthetic compared to the replacements, rather than the new ones just being a straight upgrade. Although I can tell you from experience that the spindly nature of those splinter rifles makes them very breakable if not stored correctly. This example is from my very first proper 40k army, although I did recently repaint it since I thought it would be fun to go back to my roots and replicate an old scheme. And also since my originals were... well, I can paint quite a lot better now, let's just say that.
Trooper Morris from 1987 is an early Imperial Army mini sculpted by Ali Morrison, and is one of the 3 minis in the Rogue Trader line called Morris, which of course we have all of. Why wouldn't we? Do you take us for an unmorrised household? We are maximally morrised. Between his skinny little legs, mundane name and nervous expression, there's something awfully relatable about Trooper Morris. He looks like a regular person given some armour and a gun, and is now wildly out of his depth fighting green football hooligans from space. He did not ask for this, but now he's got to deal with it.
Let's do something a little different in today's short and show off a one-off colour scheme I painted many moons ago. This is Battle Brother Shepard, a transposition of Commander Shepard's N7 armour, or more accurately its colour scheme, from the Mass Effect series into the grim darkness of 40k. I was pretty proud of it at the time, and even the base was made from scratch, with each of those little tiles being individually placed. I initially felt odd about giving this one a video since all the other shorts have been of retro minis, but then I remembered that it was made from parts of the 1998 Tactical Squad box, so the mini is still older than quite a lot of the people who will ever watch this. Being nearly 40 is wild sometimes.
Let's go back to 1990 Space Crusade again and take a look at a Gretchin mini from the box. There were a few small variants of face and gun, but the grots in the box were all the same basic thing. They're actually pretty huge for a grot too, and their odd pose that I can really only describe as attempting to sneak up on that wascally wabbit means they actually stand taller than the Space Crusade orcs. But at least it does mean that they've got distinct silhouettes when they're unpainted. Still, even if they are a bit tall, they do still have powerful goblin energy, and that's all you can really ask for in a mini, Gretchin or otherwise.
One of the more obscure minis in our collection is this Nexon mean droid from the now defunct Scottish company Zap Figures circa 1990. What I have just told you is the full extent of what we know about it, as in we've never been able to find any images of one online, so we don't even know if these little stabilizer legs are actually stabilizer legs or just a byproduct of the casting process that wasn't removed. We're starting to suspect the latter, but one cannot be sure. Which is just one of the fun and or frustrating things about this kind of mini. The fuzziness of details are such that, lacking any kind of point of reference, you never know if you've interpreted the sculptor's intentions correctly. You just gotta start painting and hope that you end up somewhere sensible.
This Jez Goodwin sculpted Thunder Warrior mini is pretty nice. Not only does it hold up quite well for a mini of its age, seeing release in early 1991 during 40k's first edition, but it was incredibly long-lived, sold in the Armour Through the Ages set until relatively recently, even seeing a limited made-to-order release in 2022. One of the results of this is that they were sold with a few different backpacks over the years, whenever the default Marine backpack was changed, regardless of how well they actually fit. Although they were never sold with the one you see here, since it's a modern 3D print. And yes, it does feel strange to have a 3D printed part on a miniature that's older than the invention of the text message.
This big beautiful bugger is a 1988 Land Raider, originally sold in the RTB5 box in a set of 2. This, along with the Rhino, were the only plastic vehicles around for a while, so were usable in a surprising number of factions, and are obviously the basis for the design of the more recent Land Raider Proteus you see in the Horus Heresy game. I love this mini. Its combination of being tall and wide but fairly short in length makes it look like the penny racer of Space Marine tanks. It's adorable. It's also mildly terrifying to actually get on the table, since it has not 1, not 2, but 4 separate parts that are prone to getting broken off and lost forever. leading to many an eBay listing of Land Raiders entirely missing their weapons, yet are still listed for £150. For the curious, they originally sold for £12.99 for the box of 2 of them, which would be about £35 in today's money. The collector's market is a cruel mistress.
This is a Cyball Miniatures SF Roman Legionary No. 4 circa 2011, which we found in the bargain bin of a gaming store for a few quid recently. This is an interesting mini since it predates the Games Workshop Modern Custodes line, filling in a niche GW wasn't filling at the time. And you can tell it's from a bit ago because despite being, well, a Custodes-sized chunk of resin, it still came with a 25mm base that was absolutely not big enough for it, no matter how large that tactical rock was. This line of not Custodes would disappear around the time that GW put out their official Custodes line, and would be replaced by a new range where the helmets were less pointed and, therefore, presumably less likely to get one of GW's lawyers knocking on their door.
Here we have Slahash, a curiosity from the 1988 Rogue Trader lineup, since it's fairly small compared to much of the rest of the line, whilst also lacking a slotter base, a trait of older Citadel miniatures that it also shares with the other 2 minis in this release. The short version of the story is that it's because it used to be part of the Citadel Fiend Factory line as a fantasy manfish to use in things like D&D, later repurposed as a Warhammer 1st Edition mini, and later still modified by Brian Ansell into a sci-fi version for playtesting certain games with. The long version is, well, it's this video we made a few years ago.
This is a Forge World Mark IV Space Wolves Venerable Dreadnought released around 2011, which is part of a line of Mark IV Dreads released over many years that were, as the kids say, straight up bussin'. I don't think it's particularly controversial to say that these kits were the nicest looking versions of the boxy Castra Ferrum style Dreadnoughts, and in many ways the things that have replaced them, like the Legion-specific Contemptor torsos, just don't feel like a fair trade. These dreads had so much character, and most of them looked equally at home in 30k or 40k armies. They're the sort of minis you can't help but want to assign names to because they feel like the ancient veterans they're supposed to be. This one's name is Luca, by the way. He's mine. You can't have him.